Hi everybody, and welcome to this workshop, Migrating PowerScript Business Logic to C#. Following is a little disclaimer about this session. Okay, so now let's take a look at the session agenda. First, we'll see how to create the Web API. Next, we'll see how to use the data window conversion utility. And we'll see how to port PowerScript functions to services and controllers. How to reuse embedded SQL in services and controllers. How to call the Web API from Power Builder, and how to test the migrated PB app and the RESTful Web API. Here you can find a little information about myself and about my company. Okay, so now we can begin. Now, first of all, I would like to tell you that this session is based on a tutorial that's already been published in appian.com. And if you want to follow it, you can do so by going here in the appian.com, scrolling all the way down and going on to documentation. In here, you can scroll down on the Power Builder section and you will be finding this PB to C# migrating refactored business logic NVOs. So I'm going to click this. And this is the tutorial. You can follow it along if you want to, but I recommend that you do so in a very controlled space so that you do get everything right the first time. So now this is something I will be actually going through really quickly because of time constraints on this video, but you can find this if you want to follow it by yourself. Okay, so having said that, let's take a quick look into Power Builder. Now, this right here is the application that we will be using. This is the demo application, and you'll notice that we have some windows inside of it. So one of them right here is actually having 3 data windows inside of it. This is a data grid window, data window. We have another data window in here, freeform, and we have some other windows that are basically the same, freeform and grid, and the third one right in here. So this application has already been refactored and it has already been set up inside NVOs, and let's take a quick look at one of them. So you'll notice in here we have some functions for this NVOs. Let's take a quick look into one of these functions. So you'll notice that it's actually accepting a data window and setting the transaction object, doing a retrieve, and returning the number of rows that were retrieved. So this is what we actually want to do and migrate into our Web API. So let's begin by creating the Web API. I will open Snap Develop, and in here in Snap Develop I will create a new project. Let me find the place where I want to save this into. So I will scroll down a little bit in here and place it inside one of these folders right in here. So I will name this order demo and just click OK. So notice how this actually asked me what type of project I wanted to create, and since I have selected that this would be a Web API, it would create the most basic stuff for me, the most basic source code for me, so that my Web API can actually work. Now this is loading. Now that it has already finished loading, let's take a quick look into our source code in here. So you'll see that right in here we have the startup, and inside this startup I would begin by adding some using statements. So I need to add the snapObjects.data library, and then I need to add the snapObjects.data.SQL server, since that's the database I will be using. I will scroll down and I will uncomment this section right here, and I would change this for the name of my data context, but I haven't created the data context. That would be basically the same as my data connection or my connection object from Power Builder. So let's add one right here. So I'm going to click in here, right click on it, add new item, and then data context, and I will name it Appian data context. So let's change this right here. It will be named Appian data context. There we go. Clicking OK. It's asking me for an Appian sample database I want to connect to. I would be using the local host for this connection, so I can edit this and just place in local host right there. Testing the connection, so already OK. Click OK. and finally OK. So then it has created an Appian data context for me. So this is what I need to place in here. I will name this Appian data context. There we go. And this right here is the connection string that was created automatically for me in here. So you see this file contains this connection string. Okay, that needs to be placed in here. So I'm going to place Appian sample in it. There we go. I have just saved the changes. So I will be making some space in here. And this I would be using it later on my application. So let's continue with the next step. So now that I am using Power Builder 2019 R2, this is a beta version, so please keep in touch and stay tuned for our next release that would be having all these nice features. So I will now close this up since I don't actually need it open, this Power Builder, so I'm closing it up. Now one nice feature is that I can actually open up the Power Builder workspace directly in Snap Develop. Okay, so I'm opening it up. And here we are. So once I have opened this up, you'll see that I have all my workspace, my target, my libraries are in here, my pebbles. And inside of them, we have the non-visual user objects. We have the data windows and everything else in here. So what I'm interested in migrating is the data windows. So I'll just click on this right here, this pebble, and select convert data windows to C# model. Let's give it a second so this opens up, and you'll see that it's actually connecting to a certain database. I will tell it to connect to the Appian sample database. So here is the list of data windows I want to migrate. Now that I have the list ready for me, I will click right here, export, and I would export this into the models folder. But I want to name this actually models. So I'm going to change this right here, models. Here we go. I'll export this. Export it. Now I can close this, and you'll notice that it's going to be asking me to reload my project. So I'll click on that. And there we go. So my data windows have been exported from Power Builder and into my C# project in here. So you'll notice that they are already in here, already translated and migrated for me. So now that I have that ready, let's take a look into my Power Builder application and see what I actually need. So remember I told you that I have some NVOs already here for me. We have 3 functions for this NVO. And what we'll be doing is actually creating a service for this to be consumed. So I will right click right here, add new folder, and let's type in the name services. There we have it. I'll double click in here, and inside of here we would be creating a new interface. So I will right click, add interface. I will name this interface, sorry, it's down here, customer service. The I stands for interface right in here. So I'll just click OK. So notice my interface has been added for me. I would add another using statements. That would be the using statement for my snap objects.data. There we have it. So now I can start by creating my methods. Now you remember that I have this methods in here. This is the methods that I will require on my application. Okay, so there is a saying that states that a lazy programmer is a good programmer. So what I'm going to be doing is actually copying and pasting this out, and it would be automatically done for me. I am actually missing another using statement, so let's add this by putting my mouse in here and add this using statement in there. So there we go, it has been added automatically for me. I'm saving this right here, and I have my methods for this service already added. Now let's add the actual service. So I'm gonna click right here, add new folder, and I will name it imp. That's for implementation. So all my implemented services would be inside of this. So I'll click in here and add a new one, customer service, the name of this file. Customer service, here we have it. Okay, so we have already added a new service. Now let's add the using statements it needs. Snap objects.data, and I believe that's it we need so far. Now I might be also needing the w.net.data library in here. So here we have it. I will now tell my class that it would be implementing the customer service interface. Now let's begin by adding a new private read-only variable that would be the variable for my connection object. So the connection object, if you can recall, is named Appian data context for this example. I will put in a local variable named underscore context. Here we go. Let's now create the constructor of this service. So I'm going to be passing the Appian data context again so we can initialize this. Here we go. And then let's initialize my variables. Here it is. Now once this is done, you can see that my application right here is actually telling me that I haven't implemented the interfaces as I requested for before. So I can fix this by clicking in here, implement interface, and see, here are my methods already added for me. But once again, lazy programmer is a good programmer. So what I'm going to be doing is actually copying and pasting this already translated code in here. Okay, so here we have the code, and you'll notice that this is already doing the retrieve customer select. So this is actually doing and creating a new data store variable, this one, the customer select. It's declaring the new data store, passing in the customer, the model name of it, customer select, this is the one right here, and the data context. It's doing the retrieval and returning the data store by itself. So it's a similar case for the rest, but in this case we're actually going to be using the embedded SQL that we have had from our NVO. So now if we take a look into this right here, you'll see that this embedded SQL comes from over here. So if I were to go to that method, as you can see right here, and you see that it has a select right here. So this select statement, if I right click here, translate and open in editor, you'll see that it's actually copying and pasting all this for me. So that's basically what we have done before, copying and pasting all this translated PowerScript code into C#. And this is the resulting we have in it. So it's doing the select, the scalar, bringing only the first one from the first row and from the first column, and returning the count. I'm going to save this. Okay, so it's time to add the controllers now. So I'll click right in here and let's take a look at my controller. So I would be adding a new controller. I'm going to click in here, add new item, API controller class, and I will name this customer controller. There we go. And notice how this has been added for me. It added all the basic code that I need for this controller. But this right here is something that is only as an example. I actually don't require this in my demo, so I would be removing this code in here, all these methods, and I have a basic controller that is, well, empty. Now let's take a look inside of the code, and let's start by adding all the necessary using statements that we will be requiring. So once again, I'm copying and pasting right in here. There we go. And oops, this is different. It's now data window net dot data. There we have it. Okay, so now let's copy in the, let's begin by creating one of the things that we need, and this is a private read-only variable. So let's add this private read-only, and in this case this would be an customer service variable, and we would place this inside an instance variable. Let's now create the customer controller constructor event. I would pass in the iCustomer service. Here we have it. This will help us initialize my iCustomer service. So service equals service. There we go. Now inside of this is where we would be adding each one of our methods. So remember, we had the customer retrieve customer select method. Let's copy and paste this over here, and there we go. So first, notice that we have the verb http get, then it produces a response type of a status code 200, and another one for 404 if not found. It would be returning an I data store. So first I declare a variable that would be catching everything from the service. Remember the iCustomer service, and it's catching the result from the retrieve customer select. It now counts if there's actually any rows returned. If none of them have been returned, it would be returning a 404 status code. Everything okay, then it returns a status 200 with the data store in plain JSON format. So this is the first method. Let's continue by adding the rest of the formats in here. So I'm copying this, here we have it, and pasting in the next method. Once again, we have the verb that produces response type, the action result, it's returning an I data store, the name of the method, and then we're declaring a new variable by catching in the response from the retrieve customer list method from the service, checking if there is anything returned or retrieved. If everything went okay, then we can return the data store. Else we would be returning a not found 404 status code. So let's continue by adding the last method. So I would be copying this from here. Let's go in here, and here we have it. This is a lot easier. It's only returning the number of customer number that was retrieved. So let's save this, and this is my controller already created. So this is actually how easy it is to actually migrate this. Obviously this would be done for me by using the automatic solution. Now I will show you a little bit about this automatic solution in just a moment, but first of all, let's try and see what we are missing in here. We need to add the service into the dependency injection. So I'll open the startup, click in here, services, add scoped. So I need to actually tell it that I would be using the iCustomer service and the customer service. Here we go. Now you'll notice that it's actually having squiggly lines underneath it, and that's because we need to add the using statements. So there's one, and here's the other. There we go. So this one right here has already been completed. Now let's test it out. First of all, we need to make sure that we have what it is required for this to work. So I will run it. Okay, so this is running. It's actually loading it. And here we go. Now let's place in the name of the controller, customer, and the name of the method I want to check. So, and as you can see, here we have it. It's returning a plain JSON of the customer select. So now let's get back to my object. Now you will notice that this has already been migrated into this web API. But how did I actually do this? Well, one of the nice features from Power Builder and from Snap Develop 2019 R2 is this would be automatically done for me. So I'll go into my models, and let's say that I wanted to actually migrate something else. Let's say that I want to migrate this customer, or let's migrate the products. So for this, I would actually do scaffolding of it. So I'll right click on here, scaffold, service and controller based on the model. This one is a data store, so I'll click this. It's asking me for the name of the service that I want to use, so I'm going to use this product service, and for the name of the controller it's going to be product controller. Then I can select any type of template I want. So in this case, the template A is the template that would be used for any application that would be any web API that is meant to be consumed by Power Builder. Template B is any other standard C# web API, can be consumed by any other UI technology such as ASP.NET Core or whatever. And C is a combination of both. So in this case, this is only for Power Builder. I would use A. Now I can just click OK. And there we go. You can see that it actually created the interface for me. And it created the service as well. And the controller. So if I wanted to actually check this controller, I can do so. So let's take a name of the, it's right here, it's the retrieve method. Let's start this and test it out. Here we go. Now this is named product and the method is called retrieve. Oops, I forgot something, and you can see that I was actually forgetting to add this service into my dependency injection. So let's do that. I'll add this right here, services at scoped. There we go. And then product service product service. There we have it. And there we go. So let's just give it a second. We can now run again. It's loading. Okay, so let's try this again right here. There you go. So it's already been translated for me. This is done automatically. This is real simple. So let's now get back to our Snap objects and our Snap Develop IDE, so we can continue migrating the rest of the web APIs. So I will be creating new methods and new web APIs. So let me first of all create another service. Let me get the name of the service I would create. So I will now create the order service. Okay, so I will create it right in here. Add interface order service. There we have it. Okay, I'm going to be copying and pasting it in here. So it's already done for me. You can see that, oh, this is not the one that I was looking for. This is the code I was looking for. So let's change this. Here we have it. Okay, once again, it's not Power Builder, is data window.net data. There it is. Okay, so now let's add the new service. Add a class, and as we call this would be order service. So now let's place this in here. There we go. And here's the order service. So I'm going to be copying this out. We'll take a look into the code in just a second. So we need to make sure that we're using the correct one. There we go. So there we have it. Now if we take a closer look into it, you'll see that again we're creating a private read-only variable, and in C# every one of these variables is automatically private, but I'm just adding this to illustrate this. This is read-only, and it's a call to the Appian data context. It's a instance variable. Then I am doing one of its constructor methods right in here, passing in the data context so I can initialize the data context variable. And these are my actually methods. So let me show them to you. All this right here are my methods. so I can add whichever I want. And as you see, I added already the ones that come from my order controller. And if I click here, you can see that all these methods have been actually added into my service. So let's take a look into this. Okay, so notice that the methods are in here. So retrieve order list, again, what I'm doing is creating a data store. It's creating the new data store right in here, passing in the data object as well as the data context, retrieving it with the argument I received. It's a string argument, the customer number, and returning the data store. So then I can continue with the controller. So now let's create a new controller, and the controller would be named order controller. So let's add this right in here. It's going to be named new item, API controller, order controller. There we go. So I don't need this. This is once again added for me just to illustrate. So let's copy this out and paste it in here. We'll take a look into what it's actually doing in just a second. So I need to fix this because it's actually the new one. Data window.net. There it is. Okay, so let's look into our controller. First of all, we're creating a service for the iOrder service. Then we are also adding an Appian data context in here. And remember, this is similar to Power Builder SQL CA. So I'm initializing both the service and the data context in my constructor event, as you can see in here. So let's start by passing in the HTTP verb get. It would be returning a response type of status 200, okay, a 404 for not found. It will be actually returning a data store, and it's accepting a string for the customer number. So we're declaring and initializing a local variable by calling the service, as you can see right in here, checking if it actually returned any rows. If it did, then we can return the status code 200 with the plain JSON. And if something went wrong and no rows were retrieved, we would be returning a 404. So it's going to be basically the same for the other methods, as you can see right here. There we go. And there we have it. So remember that all this source code is going to be available on the website on the tutorial I mentioned earlier in this video. So let's continue by adding the next service. Now the next service that I would be adding would be the iProduct service, and I have already added that. So let's just modify the source code, and I only need to add this right here. So these methods, I won't be using them, I would be using my own instead. So I'll change this right here. I'll open the product service. We'll look into this source code once again. We just need to fix this WNet, which is the latest one we have. So there we have it, and give it a couple seconds so this can actually our product service. Let's take a look into what we are missing inside of it. Okay, so let's look into the models. The product is the model. Yes, we have it in there. So let's take a look at it. Models. Okay, it seems that I'm missing something in here. So let's add that. I need to add a using statement for my order demo.models right there. That way I have my models available for this service as well. So there you have it. You see? It's already been added for me. Notice how I'm making use of the embedded SQL, and this has been done automatically by just copying and pasting with the next release of Power Builder and Snap Develop 2019 R2. So Once again, we are creating a local variable for the data context, creating a new constructor event, and initializing the data context inside of it. Here are my methods. This is retrieving a drop-down data windows for the products, returning that data store, and same for the other data drop-down data windows. Now this is actually doing a select. This is a SQL query, selecting only one result from it. Also the name right here, select by name. So there we go. Now let's add the controller of this. So let's take a look at the controller. It's the products controller. So I need to add a new product controller in here. Oh, I already have it in here. Let's replace the code from this to what we have already set up in here. So I'm replacing this. We'll take a look into it in just a second. Let me just fix this first. Data window net. There we go. Okay, so here we have the code. So let's take a look into it again. As you can see, we have already set up the service in here, and we have initialized the service variable, as you can see on this constructor event. Here it is. Now we're going to be using the HTTP get verb, then produces a response type of status code 200 and 404. Once again, it's going to be returning a string, and that is because we will be returning a drop-down data window. So as you can see, it would be declaring and initializing a local variable by calling in the service. There we go. Check if any rows have been returned. If nothing has been returned, then return not found. Otherwise, return status code 200 with the data window that we want to return. So it's basically the same for the next methods right in here. But hey, look, I'm missing something right here. See this squiggly line? So let's let Snap Develop help us fix this for me. So I'll click in here. There you go. It's already been fixed for me. So you'll see that this has already been done. So far we have already created the web API, and now what we need to do is actually consume this web API in Power Builder. So let me turn back into Power Builder. Okay, so I'm opening it up, Power Builder. So right here I would be opening up the already migrated and finished application so that we can make this video a lot shorter. I would open the window right in here, and this window, you'll notice that this is the main window right here. So we'll go to the open event of this window, and you'll notice that this window is actually creating the customer NVO that we have in here and the order NVO as well, and it's using the open event. So let's open that up. Okay, so the original code, it would be doing data window customer retrieve, but then this is already refactored. So this is actually calling one of the functions from the NVO. So if we look into this function, you'll see that this function was this, like this already before, and then we have already migrated it into consuming the new web API. So what we have done is we have added a new global variable. This is the REST client, so let's take a look at it. This is a REST client, and look, there's an end REST client in here. So let's take a look at that object, and you'll see that this is actually looking for the server and everything else that is required for it. It's going to be looking for the URL as well, initialize. So it's already been there placed in this code for us. So you can download this on the tutorial section, as I mentioned before, if you want to take a look at the original and then the finished code, or you can follow along the tutorial by yourself and get the same result as you're looking into right in here. So then once that we have this created, we're going to be retrieving it. So what we are going to be doing is getting the URL that we will be requiring. So this is the name of the controller, this is the name of the method, and then we'll just do the retrieve. And you notice that right here we're accepting a data window, so we're doing a retrieval to the data window, passing in the URL and returning the number of rows. So that's about it. So now let's go ahead and test this. How does this look once it's finished? First, I need to open Snap Develop and open it and run the application, the web API. Oh, you know what? I forgot to add the product controller as well, the product service. So let's let this to continue, and I'm going to stop it, go back to the services right here, to the startup, scroll down, and we need to add the one that we are missing right here. It's the, no, it's not this, it's services dot add scoped. There we go. I order service, and then the order service. There we go. Okay, there we go. That's what I was missing. Oop, it's services. Here we go. Okay, let's run this. There it is. Now let's run our Power Builder application and see if this is already running properly. Now there we go. It's now consuming the web API from my Snap Develop application. Okay, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you have a good day.